So today we're going to talk about the 5 negative major emotions. John Cottrell here from breakthroughleadership.co.uk. There's all kinds of emotions, probably a much longer list than I could ever write down, possibly even that I could imagine. But did you know there's actually only 5 major ones? And let's take a look at those. So the first one we're going to deal with is anger. Now you might be someone who's maybe a little bit irritable. You might feel that you're absolutely furious about something. You might want to rant about something. You could be in a rage, or you could just be mildly ticked off. But we tend to classify all these as anger. And anger is important because of its effect on both on yourself and on other people. If we're angry, so in any emotional state, we're less likely to be thinking logically. Going back to Steve Peters releasing the chimp, this is our chimp playing up. And anger in the unconscious tends to lead to things like heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, so some fairly serious health issues. Not only that, but actually we will preclude ourselves from all kinds of opportunities in life. Because if you think about it, who likes to deal with an angry person? The answer, nobody. So most people will keep their distance from you or just pass you by. You'll find it difficult to hold down any quality of personal relationship if you find yourself permanently angry. So those are the sort of the basic things to watch out for with anger. But like any of the emotions, if we can get to that root cause in your unconscious, we can actually release anger if you want to. So any of these emotions that we hold on to for some, because we've got some justification, and we'll talk about that in a second, are going to be harder to release until you're ready to let go of the justification. And I'll give you an example. Somebody was angry because they were bullied at school, no one noticed, nobody did anything, there was no justice. So there's what we call righteous anger. And the problem with righteous anger is that we are effectively punishing ourselves for the wrong that the other person committed. And people hold on to this righteous anger, sometimes for decades. And if you went back to the original, alleged perpetrator and said, well, why did you do X or did you do X? They'd probably have no recollection of it. So it's unlikely that any law was broken, that any court case could be brought. So all that's actually happening is that our victim here is actually punishing themselves. And that doesn't really work very well. So that tends to sap your energy, and as I said, keep people distant and give you blood pressure and various heart issues. So if you've got anger, best thing to do with it is, if you know your root cause, like this person did, then let's talk about how to release it and release you from your emotional prison, and you can get on with the rest of your life. Big one for people, sadness, depression. Right now, because of lockdown, a lot of people feeling depressed. And depression, let's be clear, is really, really simple. I'll stick my neck out here and say that sadness is really, depression is really simple. It's just unresolved sadness over time. And the problem with sadness over time is it becomes the depression, and the depression can lead to all kinds of immune system dysfunction. If I think of all the people that have actually, and I've had these strange occurrences where people come up and tell me what their ailment is. And one lady told me that she had multiple sclerosis. She hadn't even told me a name at this point. And it turned out, I asked her, well, what happened in the 3 years prior to your diagnosis? Did you have any significant emotional events? Oh yes, and she described this event, and it was interesting in her language. She was catastrophizing the event. Of course, catastrophizing the event creates the trauma creates the emotion, the unresolved emotion creates the dysfunction in the immune system, and before you know what, this person's quite seriously ill and walking with a stick. So be very, very careful with some of these emotions. If you know you're carrying something around, go and talk to somebody who can help you release it. Sometimes you can just talk to your friends. It's really that simple, that you actually share the burden, it lifts a bit. But you will know whether it's gone completely or whether actually you need to go and get some professional help. I've noticed as well with helping clients release sadness, I had one that said, when I did the follow-up call, they said to me, oh, it's great, my doctor's taken me off my ME medication. I'm like, what? So yeah, I was on medication for ME, my doctor said I don't need it anymore. It's like, wow. So again, a simple emotional cause, once released, don't need to be ill anymore, get on with the rest of my life. So sadness is a big one, and one of my bugbears is that actually we've got a lot of celebrities talking about their battle with depression. You don't need to battle with it, you just need to release sadness. It's really that simple. And I'm happy to take any challenge that someone wants to go for. One caveat, you've obviously got to want to release the sadness, not hold on to it for whatever reason. What would be a good reason? Sometimes memory. So if you've lost somebody, one of the mistakes people make is that they hold on to the emotion of the loss because they think that helps them remember the person. No, it doesn't. We can actually separate the two. You'll still remember the person, and then you don't need to feel so bad about losing them. We had one person who was referred to me that actually used to start bleeding around their gums and having all sorts of skin rashes on the anniversary of the deaths of 2 family members. And we were able to help them see that actually they could have a better, more positive reaction to the passing of those people and therefore not suffer the health problems as a result. So fear's the next one. A lot of anxiety right now. I think there's a number of drivers of increasing anxiety in society. Obviously with lockdown, there's anxiety about security of employment. Obviously if I'm anxious about security of employment, I don't know about my security of living. So you can understand why that might be happening. Also I think we're becoming, dare I say, more feminized as a society. And what's happening is therefore we're becoming more emotional. I think there's also much more emotional messaging out in terms of what we take in, what we see, what we hear, the way the media works, newspapers, TV, radio, advertising. It's trying to influence us and manipulate us all the time, and that can drive people to be more anxious than they need to be, so they lose a sense of perspective. So anxiety is one of the mania emotions, but it's incredibly draining. And what it also does, it prevents us from moving forward because we're simply too scared to take the steps. So don't be one of those people that actually never has a fulfilling life because of anxiety, but actually you can release that emotion and get on with the rest of your life if you want to. So fairly straightforward with fear and anxiety. Again, get to the root cause of that emotion, and once you've released it, everything will be a lot calmer. One of the things that gets in the way of that is simple bad habits. In other words, you've always learned to react in the same way. So it's like a pathway. We've got to stop you walking down the path so that path overgrows and we find a more positive path for you to follow. Another reason why releasing might be difficult is if you're living with other people who are also anxious and fearful, that you simply get reinfected. So it's very important to take care of who's around you, and if that's your family, it's even more difficult. Yeah, so to think about how you're going to release that emotion so you don't need to be anxious or fearful. Next one's hurt. Hurt's quite an interesting emotion, because obviously most hurt, apart from the actual physical hurt, if I fall down or somebody hits me, is in our perception. Somebody might say, oh, that was very hurtful, but to another person it would be water off a duck's back. So we have to be careful how we perceive things. It's often driven by our previous experiences. And typically with hurt, you tend to get 2 types of reaction. You've got the passive victim, and typically with a passive victim, their physiology does the talking. And these are the people that feel hurt and start comfort eating, so normally they're quite a bit overweight. And then on the other side, you've got the active victim who's always nagging for attention. You know, there's always a drama around this person. It's how they get their feeling of importance. And both have the causality. The causality of both of these is feeling hurt in some way. So we have to get to the root cause, back to the old dieting question. No point going on a diet and struggling with that if you don't actually get to the root cause, which is nothing to do with the diet company. Remember, the diet company is selling you products, it's not solving your problem. Because as long as you have the problem, you're going to buy the diet products. Makes sense, right? So I don't know how big the global industry is, but it's billions. Yeah, and yet, if you asked any adult How do I lose weight? Well, exercise more and eat less. But if it was that simple, we'd all do it and we wouldn't need to spend money on all these products. So the point is, don't spend money on the products, think about what the root cause is, find someone who can help you release it. Last one, guilt. Guilt's a really interesting one. It's quite rare that I'll have a client who's got significant guilt issues. So I have less expertise in that area, but the process is the same. That somewhere along the line you perceive that you did something, that may be something that you do need, a guilt is an appropriate reaction, but is it appropriate to keep guilt with you for the rest of your life? Even if you commit a criminal offence, unless it's incredibly serious, you don't go to prison for the rest of your life. You serve your time and you then get on with the rest of your life. So if you're dragging guilt around with you, ask yourself, what purpose is that guilt serving me? Chances are it isn't. However bad you feel about what happened, let it go because it isn't serving you. And you can't undo what's been done, so let it go. And again, help me do that if you need the support to do that.